The Chicago Bulls have won a game. Can they win more games in a row? Can the Chicago Bulls get on a little winning streak here to end 2024 and start off 2025? That's the question I'm going to ask here. We're also going to talk about Dosunmu, who's going to be missing some time for the Chicago Bulls. And the Bulls have announced a Joakim, Derrick Rose special that's going to be going down this afternoon on the Chicago Bulls YouTube channel. I'm excited, and you guys should be too. We're going to talk about all and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. I'm Hayes, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central and Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcast. And no sponsor today. Let's get right into it today, y'all. So the Bulls won against the Milwaukee Bucks in a really good game. It was a really good back and forth game by the Chicago Bulls. Josh Giddey had a triple-double. Coby White continued looking like he's prepared to start coming out of his slump. Not ready to say he's out of it yet, but he looks like he's starting to go in that direction. And this is a win where the Bulls won 116-111, and they held off some big runs by the Milwaukee Bucks that the Bulls usually would have kind of allowed to take them out the game, and the Bulls showed some resolve in that game. They were missing Dosunmu, who we all know how important Ayo has been as a two-way player for this Bulls team. And so, while that game was fun, it was exciting to watch. They did so without Zach LaVine having a big scoring load like he's had the last few games as well. He only scored 15 points on 12 shots. Vucevic had a really good game with 23 points and 13 rebounds. But overall, just the balance in that game, right? And how the Bulls attacked, and had one of their better defensive efforts was all really good to see by the Chicago Bulls team. Got to give them credit for that. It's not always that we see the Bulls be able to play in that manner, especially not consistently, and we saw it. But the question that I want to ask here now, right, because a couple of days removed for the win, not going to do a whole breakdown over it. You guys have had time to absorb that win at this point. But the Bulls, they had a 3-game winning streak, right? The Bulls won against Charlotte, Toronto, and Boston. They then turned around and lost against Boston, Milwaukee, and Atlanta. So, that kind of evened out. When you now look at this Bulls schedule, with them beating and defeating the Milwaukee Bucks, their next few games, they have a game against Charlotte to end the last game of 2024, and then they have a game against Washington to start off on New Year's Day on the 1st at 7 p.m. After that, they got New York, San Antonio, Indiana, and Washington. But the question that I want to ask here is that, can the Bulls go on another 3-game winning streak? Now, what comes after that is what comes after that, and we'll talk about that as that goes along. But can the Bulls go on another 3-game winning streak? And will that change how we view this team at all, right? You guys know my opinion. The team is right along with what I thought they were going to be coming into this year. I had said all season, I see this being a 30 to 35 win team. Right now, we have the record where the win percentage of a team that's going to finish around 34 to 35 wins. So the Bulls are right around where I expected them to be in this summer coming into it. Now, but they're on that pace with them missing players for a large period of time. Lonzo Ball missed, 12 games, something like that. Zach has missed some games in there. Coby's missed a game in there. He's been hurt before. We're now out without Jalen Smith and Dosunmu, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the second segment of the show. So the Bulls have been able to maintain a 34-35 win pace with injuries being all up and down, chemistry issues being up and down, slumps over that time. So can the Bulls go on another winning streak? And if they do, would that change anything at all, right? Not for me. And that's just my personal opinion. I don't want to yuck on anyone else's yum. I know that there are some Bulls fans that have really big win expectations for this team. I don't necessarily have that, but if the Bulls are able to do it, the Bulls are able to do it. But I do think the thing that's going to really help this team, if whatever their goal is they have to be able to beat bottom feeders, right? And the Charlotte Hornets and the Washington Wizards have two of the worst records right now in the Eastern Conference. So I lean towards the Bulls having the ability to go on a winning streak here, again, to end 2024 and to start off 2025. That's not too special if they do, though, right? While I'm saying that they can go on a winning streak, I don't want to glaze it and act like, oh, that's this all of a sudden amazing thing. It's not. A winning streak would be more impressive is how far can you keep it going? And one of the things that's been a thing that has this Bulls team has battled with over the last 4 years, really since Billy Donovan has been here, is consistency, right? They win 3 games in a row, and then they'll lose 3 or 4 games in a row, right? And that's just how this has been for this Bulls team for so long. So while I do think that the way that things are lining up, the Bulls could go on another 3-game winning streak. And listen, we know with this team, they can compete it. Derrick Rose night is January 4th against the New York Knicks. I don't even care about a winning streak. Win that game. Iowa's already not playing. Win that game. That's what I want to see. Win that game. But outside of that, I do think that the Bulls have this ability. And, we'll talk about it, what happens after that when it comes down to it. Rob says, what up, Hayes? What's going on, Rob? What's going on, Corn? Glad to have you in the building as always. Rob says, yeah, waiting on that special at 3. I can't wait for that special. That is going to be, I may go live afterwards. The mental part of the game, they didn't get down too much after some bad calls and plays, etc. And that's how you can sustain a winning streak, right? Is that you got to have that mental part of it. So much like, yeah, we talk about teams and skill, and that plays a part into it as well. But like sometimes that mental aspect is what could push you over the top, right? And that's what this team is hoping that they're going to be able to do, is get the mental part of this thing right, so that they can start stringing some wins together. And then, like I said, Coby is getting to the lane a little bit more, right? He's starting to come out of his slump because he's driving more. Literally, Coby White is averaging 10 drives a game on the season. The last 2 games, he's had 18 drives each game. Keep driving to the rim, Coby. But with that said, man, you just got to keep doing that, right? And I think ultimately, like, this team is going to be an inconsistent team. Make no mistake about it. I just think when you have the defensive limitations that this team does have, the shortcomings, I should say, that this team has, it's going to be hard to be very, very consistent. But I do think that, this Bulls team has shown that they can take advantage of teams. And they haven't shown that consistently either, but we do know that hope's there a little bit. I would love to say that the Bulls are going to go on a 4-game winning streak, right? With 1 game already being there. If they could win against Charlotte and Washington, ride the momentum of that on what's I'm sure is going to be a high energy, emotional day with Derrick Rose night. That's going to be an emotional day for the fans. That's going to be an emotional day for people like Modest and Dosunmu from the city of Chicago. I'm sure Javon Carter as well. That's going to be an emotional game, even though Io's not going to be playing more than likely in that game, which we'll talk about a little bit next. Just that night, the pressure of that night is going to be so big. You got Tom Thibodeau in the building, right? You got all these things going on. That Derrick Rose night, man, I can't wait till we talk about that as we get closer to that night. But overall, like, it's going to be a big day for the Bulls. And while, hey, Locked On said I could take New Year's Day off, but I'm probably not going to, because I want to hype up that game. So, it is what it is when it comes down to that. Need the drives to stay high for Coby. In fact, we need Coby to keep putting the pressure on the defense. The win streak is whatever, but I need the Derrick Rose win. Hey, listen, Derrick Rose night, I need that win too. Either way, late January, February, March, they'll be under 500 for sure. Oh, more than likely, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to glaze it. I'm going to keep it real when it comes down to things like that. It's going to be very hard for this team to be over 500 around that time period. But we'll see. We'll see. Where do things have happened? What's the longest win streak of Billy Donovan's career in Chicago? 9 games. The 9-game win streak that we went on. Even though he didn't coach all 9 of those games, but that's the longest streak under him. Outside of that, I think we have another 6 or 7-game win streak as well under him. But those are the 2 longest ones since Billy Donovan has been the head coach of the Chicago Bulls. Tonight should be a Nikola Vucevic game because they're a big man. Can't match up with him. I wouldn't say that for sure. Mark Williams, I think, is playing. Mark Williams is the type of big man that Nikola Vucevic struggles against. Yeah, Mark Williams is 100% healthy. 7 foot, 240 pounds, and athletic. Those are the type of bigs that Nikola Vucevic struggles with. So I can't say that that Vuce should just have a big night against Mark Williams when he's playing. Now, Mark Williams got to stay healthy, but I won't just say that. Jamal, if we can't string those wins together, it's going to feed into the bad narrative about Zach. I wish they would have pulled the trigger on trade. At this point, I don't think it. I don't agree with that, Jamal. I get where you're coming from. Like, I understand the thought process between that, but I think at this point, the narrative is we're past the narrative. Zach LaVine is playing some of his most complimentary basketball of his career, so I don't necessarily think that if the Bulls can't string together wins, it's gonna play a narrative into Zach. Now, if Zach was gone and we strung wins together, and then he came back and we couldn't, maybe that. But Zach LaVine's been here for the 3-game winning streak. He's been here for losing streak, so I don't know how much of that changes it for him. So. Yeah. Interesting. Didn't even think was close to 9 being so long. Yeah, I mean that 9-game winning streak, that was what, 3 years ago at this point, around this time of year too. Like it was no, it was more towards, I think that was towards end of January, beginning of February, but not too far off. But yeah, it is what it is there. But all right, next up, we're going to be talking about losing Ayo Dosunmu for an extended period of time and how the Chicago Bulls can weather the storm without Ayo Dosunmu. But first, we got to get to a message from one of our sponsors, and this one is going to be Rocket RX. This episode is brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has the solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor visits and pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in a discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from real U.S. clinical team, complete with a quick 100% online consultation, and you'll get your free prescription today. Visit Rocket RX to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's Rocket RX, code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your order. Terms apply. Rocket RX, better sex made simple. More Locked On Bulls coming up next. All right, Bulls fans, thank you guys for tuning in, especially midday episode here at Locked On Bulls. I appreciate all the love and support, but I need one more thing from you guys before you go today, even though we're not at the end of the episode, but before you log off this, I need you to go to LockedOnDaily.com. And what you're going to do there is you're going to sign up for the Locked On Bulls daily newsletter written by your boy, and that way you can get more Bulls news delivered directly to your inbox. You ain't even got to come. You don't have to go get it. It's going to come to you every single morning. Just go to LockedOnDaily.com, and while you're there, if you're interested in getting daily newsletters for any other team, you can sign up for those there as well. But with that said, let's get into it. Over the weekend, we got the news that due to a sprained right calf, Ayo Dosunmu is going to be missing some extended time. They said he's going to be reevaluated in about 10 days. This was a couple of days ago, and it puts him at being out about 5 or 6 games. Keep in mind, the reevaluation, it means that there's still a chance that it could go longer than that, but that's the next time that they're going to look at him, which is all but basically means that Ayo Dosunmu is not going to be available for this Derrick Rose night game. And that's really unfortunate. One of the better moments that we've gotten as Bulls fans in recent memory was Ayo Dosunmu's rookie year, when I think Derrick Rose was still playing for the Knicks, and we had Ayo guarding Derrick Rose, and it was just kind of an all Chicago moment. And for a night that's going to be so major for the city of Chicago, it just sucks that Ayo Dosunmu is not going to be able to be out there with this Bulls team, man. It really sucks. But even more importantly than that, Ayo Dosunmu is right now the Bulls' best two-way player. Now, I'll say this. I'm going to wait, much like with Coby White. I need to see it for a few more games before I say it. But by the end of this week, we could be talking about Coby White being out of his slump and Patrick Williams playing some of the most aggressive basketball that we've seen in quite a while. We'll get into that. And again, I want to see a couple of more games before I start getting excited about that. That could be coming. And if it does, definitely going to be covered here. But Ayo Dosunmu has become such an important part of the Bulls roster. When you look at the Bulls' 50 most played lineups, there's only two that have a positive point differential. And both of those lineups have Ayo Dosunmu in it. That's the type of impact that Ayo Dosunmu's had, and he's worked himself out of his early season slump, right? As a starter, Ayo Dosunmu is averaging almost 15 points per game. He's averaging 10 as a reserve player. It evens out. I think he's averaging close to 13 on the season. But Ayo Dosunmu has just become one of those players that is more than a glue guy. Like, you look at it and it's easy to call him a glue guy, but it's even more than just being a glue guy, right? Because Ayo has the defense. Offensively, he's bringing it. His three-point shooting is slowly starting to trend back up to the way that he shot the 3-ball last year for the Bulls. And so all of those things are hugely important for a Bulls team that lacks consistency, right? Now, the Bulls have played, games without Ayo Dosunmu. They got their win last night without Ayo Dosunmu. Josh Giddey playing his best defensive game of the season, maybe, when it comes down to that. But it's hard to replicate everything that Ayo Dosunmu brings because of the different ways that he's able to bring it and how he's able to guard multiple positions, right? Ayo Dosunmu started off the season shooting sub 20%, has gotten up to 30%, 32% on the season so far. With the month of December so far, he's shooting 39.5%, almost 40% there. So he's trending back up to what he was. And I hope that this isn't going to be something that distracts Ayo's rise, right? Like he was on such a trending up nature that you just don't want to get away from that for Ayo. And so that's something that the Bulls are really going to have to look at. That's something Ayo's going to have to, look at. But you want to protect it, because the one thing with a calf injury, and I don't want to fear anybody, but a calf injury can be a sign of something going on with your Achilles. And so if you don't sit and rest it, it can turn into something else. And that's what the Bulls have really tried. This whole season has been, let me not say the whole season, but so much of the season has been managing injuries so they don't turn into something worse, right? You look at Lonzo's injury. They caught that before it turned into a grade 3 sprain that would have needed surgery, would have ended the season. They managed that, right? Ayo's now his sprained calf, which could turn into Achilles thing. They're trying to manage that so it doesn't turn into anything bigger, right? And that's what a medical staff is for. I don't want to act like this medical staff is doing something like different. That's what every medical staff in the NBA and sports is trying to do, is limit risk on injuries, manage those injuries so they don't turn into something longer term that linger on and that hurts your team for longer. And so, let's hope that they're able to do that. You want Ayo healthy. It's not about getting him on the court for a certain or specific day. It's about how long can you keep him healthy on the court, right? And especially when you have, players that have stepped up. Dalen stepped up, especially defensively, still a wildly inconsistent player, but he stepped up some. Josh Giddey stepped up his defense. Coby starting to get back to being a better player. The Bulls have enough guard depth to be able to weather the storm. It's just that no one player replicates what Dosunmu brings to this Bulls team. But with injury, it brings opportunity. And for a season that we're looking to develop our younger guys more, and that's kind of the focus with this, it's going to open up opportunity for Dalen, who started a game. Now, he got in foul trouble, which is a problem. But, now with Giddey back, he's not going to be starting. But it's going to open up more opportunity for Dalen, right? THT, a player that's been playing pretty solid, even though his shooting has fallen off a cliff. That shooting is gone from decent to hell for THT. But hopefully that improves. Lonzo's back healthy. So Lonzo and his 20 minutes restriction, now that kind of opens up some more things for him. So it's going to breed opportunity. It just comes down to what at this point, how the Bulls weather that storm. And that's something that's fun as a basketball watcher to watch, is who steps up at times when it matters the most. That's an important part of this. And we'll see how it's going to go. Let's get back into the comments a little bit. Why did it refresh on me? I hate it when it does that. We had a comment from Shay I was going to read, but now I can't find it. Oh, here it goes. Just my opinion, but either this game or next game should be a perfect game where Patrick Williams should score 20, because it's not about him scoring 20 though, Shay. Like, we got to stop trying to, and I'm not saying that that's what you're trying to do. It's not about scoring. It's not about scoring. It's about how do you take advantage of the opportunities that are in that game. It'd be different if Pat was a 1 or a 2 or even a 3. He's sometimes the 5th option on offense. It's not about him scoring 20. It's just about him taking advantage. And again, Patrick Williams is so important to the Bulls defense. I don't know if he'll ever have he'll have the opportunity, but he's going to have to shoot very efficiently to do so. If we trade Vucevic, this is from Terry, if we trade Vucevic, what position do we target in the draft? Best available. No matter where the Bulls pick. Now, the best could be a center, right? The best could be a power forward. The best could be a point guard. But I think with where the Bulls are and the depth in this draft, and keep in mind, we got a second round pick as well in a deep draft. It's about the best player. Whoever you truly see is the player that has the best chance to turn into a star. Because the Bulls, it'll be different if the Bulls were like this perennial playoff team, or we were one piece away. That's when you go position. The Bulls are far enough away. You go best talent available. You let the rest work itself out, at least in my opinion. Genuine question, and I know it sounds dumb, but why doesn't anybody in the front office really care? By this point in the season, the record is the record. Teams should blow it up. Why? We're not going to blow it up. I don't know why people keep hoping for something that this team is never going to blow it completely up. And so you're not saying what they should do. You're saying what you want them to do. They're not going to completely blow it up. Now, they're going to maybe over time, but this is not a front office. Like, look at it again. AK comes from Denver. Denver never blew it up. After Carmelo Anthony left, they never completely blew it up. They built over time. They changed that team over time. That's what this team is going to do. If you're looking for the complete teardown, that's never coming for this team. It's never coming for this team. Terry also asks, who's more valuable at this point, Coby or Ayo? Well, if they're both playing well, I would say their value is about equal. Now, Ayo can fit on any, like, Ayo's the type of player to me, it almost doesn't matter your roster construction. He can fit on almost any roster. His game is that adaptable, and he's that good at some of the basics. So if that's how you rank value, cool. But Coby White has such a scoring upside. But again, he's an inconsistent player. So it really depends on how the team is going, right? And what you see for the vision of the team that you want to build going forward to really kind of equate value to that, right? If they can win these next couple of games, it makes up for the 3-game. Well, not really, because the Bulls went on a 3-game winning streak before. We were just on a 3-game winning streak before we went on a 3-game losing streak. So it's about sustained success. So because the Bulls very well could win the next 2 in a row for a 3-game winning streak and then lose 4 or 5 in a row, right? That's how it's gone this season. So it's all about things being the ebbs and flows of stuff so far. The mock drafts have the Bulls taking a point guard or center with either the first or second round picks. If they have both picks, I can see the point guard if Giddey is back. Well, that's the thing, though. Mock drafts last year had us drafting a point guard, too. And that's when the season when Coby had a great season. You can't trust mocks. Mocks at this point. So let me just tell you about mock drafts at this point in the season are just they're just basically ranking how the players that they feel are best available. They're not really taking into consideration that team's needs because you don't know what a team's going to need at the end of the season. So don't buy too much in the mock drafts at this point. Who in their right mind wants to see a team that wins 15 games? If it happens, y'all still going to be pissed. Tanking is not the way to. Well, here's the thing. Nobody wants to see it, but sometimes it's needed. That's the thing. Sometimes it is needed to really reset it. Sometimes it is needed. Sometimes your team is going to win 15 games. It's about why they're winning 15 games. So because if they're winning it with a young team that's learning and developing, cool, that's different, right? But yeah, nobody wants to see their team win 15 games. It's never going to happen. But that doesn't mean that sometimes it is needed depending on what's going to happen. So you got to look at that as well. But all right, y'all, let's get into the last topic for today. No sponsor here between the segments on this one. The Bulls released a clip of a video that's going to drop at 3 p.m. Chicago time on the Chicago Bulls YouTube channel. And that's Derrick Rose and Joakim sitting down and I guess looking at some of their best moments and telling stories and talking. And I'll tell you what, for people who were Bulls fans of that era, right? Because keep in mind, when we drafted Derrick Rose, if I'm not mistaken, I was 20 years old, I think. I was 20 years old when we drafted Derrick Rose. When that happened, like that whole run, that was the first time I got to see, because keep in mind, I watched Derrick Rose in college. I won't say I watched every game. I wasn't a huge Memphis fan, but that was the first time really in my life that I got to see a player from college all the way to now Baron Davis was probably the first, but I got to see a player all the way from college and then play for my team, right? And so this is going to be such a nostalgia and not nostalgia bait. This feels organic, right? The Bulls over the course of the years have felt like such a franchise that nostalgia baits its fans. This doesn't feel like bait. This feels like a genuine organic moment between two people who are lifetime friends and who the last time that we had real faith in this franchise, they were at the heart of that. The relationship that built and developed for Joakim and Derrick Rose on the court, off the court, is something that we got to see, right? And while Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan weren't always the closest, Derrick Rose and Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, I say Joakim Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan weren't always the closest. Joakim and Derrick Rose are legitimate friends. And we saw that on the court. We see that off the court. Now, with both of them being retired, we're still seeing that, right? We're still seeing that friendship and the reverence that they have for each other. When you hear, we will never see a time where Scottie Pippen was talking crap about Michael Jordan. You will never see that from either two of these guys, because the reverence that these two guys have for each other is what teammates and teamwork should be built upon. And I'm not going to try to make it into this like wax poetic thing, but it's just an amazing moment to see two people who some of us our fondest memories of being Bulls fans come from what these two guys were able to do on the court. And really, when you look at it, it was a relatively small amount of time, but it's such a meaningful period of time for Bulls fans that we will always look upon it fondly. So I don't know about y'all. I almost didn't do this live until afterwards, but it would have been too late and too close to the game time. But that moment of watching this, I know that there are going to be Bulls fans all across everybody, all across the world, not just Chicago, not just the United States. It's going to be such an amazing moment to see these two guys, because we got to see these guys go from kids to grown-ass men, right? And that's something. Like, to see two guys develop from children. They were still kids when they came here to Chicago. To grown-ass men is not something that a lot of franchises get to see, right? The Warriors are going to have it with Steph and Klay at some point, even though, they didn't retire together. Well, neither did Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah, for that matter. But it's something that we have not had here as a fan base in so long. And I hope everybody's tuned into this moment. Go to the Bulls YouTube channel. I'll be in there live chatting so we can talk about it as a family, because this is one of those moments that I feel like Bulls Nation needs to take in as a family. That's what I truly feel. That's how I feel. And it's a moment that it touches me, man. For the only times I really get touched emotionally by things is like when it comes to my children. But this is going to be one of those moments for sure, man. So make sure you guys stay locked in and tuned in for that one. We'll discuss the fallout from that after the game tonight as we talk about the game as well. Make sure you guys are following us at Locked On Bulls. You can follow me personally at CEO Hayes. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Locked On Bulls is free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube, the Odyssey app, Amazon Fire TV. We're available everywhere. If you want Locked On Bulls is available there. Love you guys. Go Bulls. See red, man. And I'll see you guys tonight after the game. Like I said, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Love you guys. Go Bulls. Peace.